We are jamming Outliers. I wanted to say thank you so much. My name is Niiamah Ashong, and we are here on the Outliers at Roundtable, which is a podcast that brings together extraordinary outliers, building great things out in the world, and showcases how they bring who they are into the mix to make their impact, their income, and their integrity continue to scale. We're here today with six incredible outliers. I'm going to give you a chance to get to know them, and we're going to dive in to see how they build things out differently and still create success. Today, we're going to start off here. I'd like to start off with Megan and then Holly. I'd like you both to introduce yourselves. Start with Megan first, then Holly, and then we'll continue along the way.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a massage therapist, yoga teacher, meditation teacher, Reiki master, and I have a podcast with Holly called Yoga in the Dark.
Great to have you here. Holly?
Hi, everybody. My name is Holly Nicole. I have a business called Holly Nicole Healing that really focuses on not only massage therapy, yoga, meditation, but also spiritual counseling and coaching. And yeah, really happy to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you here. Let's get to know Myles and also Amanda.
Yeah. My name is Myles Biggs. Got a couple of podcasts. My first one was called Relish the Journey, which led me to my second one called Unseen Work, which is also the name of my book and a TED Talk I gave a couple of years ago, which really all led to my business. I never planned to have my own business. It just all naturally progressed. So my business is really me. It's people coming to me saying they resonate with my idea, and I apply that Unseen Work framework to all sorts of things in business, personal coaching, and consulting.
And I am Amanda Solar, founder of Soulful Living, which it was designed to help people live their fullest lives and really appreciate the beauty in their lives. I was a chamber COO for 30 years, and I had a really dramatic situation with one of my daughters, ended up in intensive care for almost a year and lots of care after. And it kind of taught me about the value of finding the beauty and the joy in your life, no matter what your experience is. So to that end, I also have a podcast which celebrates people doing just that, called Soulful Connections. And I am a certified meditation instructor. And it's just one of the many tools that I think we use to create our most meaningful lives.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll go with Bonnie, and then we'll wrap up with Timea.
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Bonnie Groessl. I am from Wisconsin, and my original, it's so great to hear other people have had previous lives, because I started as a nurse and then a nurse practitioner and was doing that for many years. Was at a large multi-specialty clinic, but they let me be an entrepreneur and develop programs, which is awesome. Then I went into my own private practice, and then we had a life-changing event too. We had a bad car accident. I was in a coma, all of that stuff, but got my brain back. And then I reinvented myself into what I do today, which is totally not what I did before. So, I do websites and graphic design and video work and coaching, and help entrepreneurs to reach more people so they can share their message. That's really the core of what I do, is helping people share their message.
Glad to have you here, Bonnie and Amanda. Sorry, Timea.
Hello, everyone. My name is Timea Urban, and my business is called The Urban Healer. I'm the only Canadian up north, so that's me. Thank you for having me. Glad you found me somehow. Funny that you mentioned that, Bonnie. I'm actually a registered nurse as well. I began with neurosurgery trauma because I love trauma and I love anything to do with the brain and the mind. And then through my own journey and extreme burnout, I realized that that is not my passion, which is how I got into becoming a Reiki master as well as a life coach. I specialize with everything to do with the subconscious mind, nervous system regulation, and energy medicine, which is kind of what led me to create all of the different offerings I have. One of the things that I absolutely love and is my passion project is my podcast, which is called Discover Your Joy. And that is one of the big things I guide my clients through, of figuring out what their joy is and also feeling safe to feel it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And Outliers, as you're listening here, each of these people here have something to say. They are more than just this episode. So if you hear something from them, follow them. Go listen to their podcast. Get into their world. I'm going to say this early here because you can already see the caliber of conversation that we're going to have. The people who out here, they're playing the game, and I want to make sure that I say this out front to go and dive into their world even deeper. All right. Well, we have 6 business owners here, and I think I would like to really focus in on how you're leveraging what makes you different into your business. Right. I want to start out here with almost like what got you started, and I'll take a few elements of this. There was something that came up as a bit of a thread around having previous lives and reinventing yourself. And so I'm very, very curious here. And what I'll do is I'll leave it open. If you have something, just raise your hand or just unmute your mic. I tend to see these things. I'm curious about what got you started and how you are currently leveraging your previous lives, because I know that I thought I had to leave mine behind, and it wasn't until several years later that I realized oh, it's actually a combination of things. So would anyone like to jump in and bring us in about how you got started? Yeah, I see you, Timea. Why don't we start with that?
I'll first start off with having an extreme identity, like death, figuring out who I am, what I am. But I would say that rather than having to fully leave, those skills are still transferable, but in a different way. And I mean, for me, I find that a lot of people trust me at a deeper level just because I do have multiple science degrees. I have been a nurse for over 13 years. I still actually practice, just not often. And I think that is who I am. But then it also made me realize that what I was doing, because I always wanted to be a healer, but being a bedside nurse in a trauma center was not it. And I think that that's something that you get to be proud of. You didn't just learn those skills for nothing. My previous life before that was banking, but then that gave me grit to handle people. So then everything you've been through in all your previous lives will create who you are now, and also skills that you can teach other people. Even though I'm not teaching people how to be a nurse, but if I'm teaching other people to be healers, you need to use your nursing knowledge and that empathy, which is helpful for everyone, regardless of what they do.
Thanks for that, Amanda. Please keep.
Yeah, and similarly, my former life was as a chief operating officer of a large chamber of commerce. And although Soulful Living sounds very different from a chamber of commerce, I, through those years, accumulated so many connections with governmental leaders, with business owners, with holistic practitioners, authors, artists. What always intrigued me, even when I was in that role, was really their lives, their stories, what they overcame, how we're so similar and how we're unique and how we can learn from one another. So really, it's taking those same connections. And of course, because now we learned, at least I learned during the pandemic how to make connections all over the world. It kind of expands those connections, and we are all kind of in this together. And so I've been able to utilize that kind of chamber feel in maybe a more soulful way.
Thank you for that, Amanda. I love that connection here. I would love to take one more. Someone's had a pastor. I see you, Myles. You're unmuted. Let's jump in.
Yeah, so I think, ditto to what everybody said. I think the different twist I'd put on it is it doesn't always have to be a previous life. I think I'm living multiple lives sometimes, because while I do have all my businesses and stuff that I own, I still hold a full-time job working for someplace else. I'm a vice president in a marketing agency, put in 45, 50 hours a week. And then I do all the other stuff. It's like my fun hobby that pays me instead of me paying to do it. Right. So for people listening, if you're a little nervous to, maybe identify as a full-on entrepreneur and be like, oh man, this means I have to quit my job and uproot everything. You don't. There's a way to do both at the same time. It just means sometimes sleeping a little less, maybe watching a little less Netflix. You got to look at where you're spending your time and just start reinvesting it into yourself, and you can start to build both at once.
I'm glad you brought this in here, because that's the main thing I found out about Outliers is that there's no two people look the same. It's and everyone has their own journey to get into what they do, as well as their own unique ways of bringing in their offering. And so I'd love to go to Megan, Holly, and Bonnie to start off this part of here. I want to get to how you all let's say, create your clients? What's something that you do in terms of like the way that you bring people into your world that you feel like most people wouldn't see? Yes, like your marketing, you're doing your sales, you have everything else that's behind it, but like, what's something that you do either differently or something you find to be like really special or important to what you do that most people wouldn't actually recognize or know would be a part of it all? Megan, I see you making a move, so why don't we open up with you, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes.
I guess maybe an unconventional way that I receive clients is really just doing the work on myself. I think that being really genuine and walking my talk, and I really believe in working through trauma and being able to integrate those different parts of ourselves into the work that we do to heal others. So really diving into shadow work on my own time, not being scared to go into all of the dark parts of my past and my trauma, and really finding that joy and finding that healing so that I can harness it and guide other people through the same process, helping people be fearless when they encounter their past, present, and future, and what they want to manifest and what they want to bring in, and realizing that when we can fearlessly move through these darker parts of ourselves, that we are completely unstoppable. So I think that honestly, just diving into that work on my own is what brings clients into me. I don't really do much marketing, to be honest. Maybe not great of a businesswoman in that sense. But I feel like I attract the people that are meant to be with me.
Yeah, I still want to hear from you, Holly and Bonnie, but I want to call out something that I thought I was hearing here, Megan, which is you say, like, you started off, this is how I receive clients, even just that language of receiving. And then you talked about coming to you and attracting. Like, there was very much, I hear the distinction there around like the energy being like bringing people in towards you, and then hearing some of the other things that you do that creates that space. So thanks for that, Megan. I like to call in just like, even here I said creating clients, or like, rather than like, getting customers or selling. Like, so language is important, and I can see the alignment within you. So thanks for bringing that in. Holly, Bonnie, feel free, just unmute yourself and let's continue the conversation. What comes to you all? Yeah, Holly.
Sure. I like to just emulate that with Megan, knowing her personally, and then also just she was the person that when I really wanted to step into creating something like the podcast of Yoga in the Dark, she was the first person I thought of, because she was one of the most authentic people that I knew. And it was through our own journey, through not only being friends, but then going into that space of being co-hosts together. And I truly believe that authenticity is what attracts. When we move toward our most authentic selves, then that energy moves out toward others. And like Myles was saying, I I wish that I was better at my own marketing, but really, honestly, it brings people to me that are saying, I heard your message. I see the way that you show up in the world. And if you can do it, that gives me this hope that I can do it too. And that's something that really stands out. And I think that for so many of us, especially if you're in the counseling or coaching realm, there's a lot of people who will try to give you this formula for how to get big, so to speak. And at some point in time, I had to kind of do away with those formulas and just really settle into my own process. And it is through walking through the fire of my own life and facing the things that have come up within me that really creates not only just healing spaces, but belonging. I had somebody say that to me recently when I sat in ceremony. That was, we don't come together to heal, we come together to connect and belong. And when we feel like we belong, or that we're connecting with other people, it gives us this freedom. That was the theme of the ceremony was, are you free? Are you free? And that was just a simple question. And it opened up so many people to access these parts of themselves where they're like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm not financially free. I'm not free. I'm not spiritually free. I have these areas in my life where I'm not being truly transparent and honest with myself. And if that's something in the healing journey, is that when we can learn to handle the truth about ourselves, there isn't anything that we can't do. And so that's something that really, I think, I emulate in my own work, and that Megan and I emulated in the podcast and that's why it's named Yoga in the Dark. Because there's so much focus on the light, and I love it. And I think it's absolutely necessary, but it's when we learn to reckon with those dark parts of ourselves, and we learn to start really being honest with ourselves, that we can attract the people who are ready for that type of dialogue.
I appreciate that, Holly. Thank you for bringing this in here. Bonnie, I want to hear from you, because I know that you've been doing a lot with business for a while, and you actually have a way of keeping things really simple that I really appreciate. So do you mind sharing some of the things that you bring into the mix as well?
Sure. As what many of people have said, we don't really do marketing. In fact, we have a publishing company that's one of our businesses. And when we stopped promoting, even having it on our website that we do this, we get busier than we ever were before. So we just don't. But I think one of the things that I think is interesting is because it's by accident. I'm kind of one of those people that everybody opens up to. When I did podcasting many years ago, I would have my guests say, "Oh my gosh, I never thought I was going to talk about this on your podcast," but you pulled it. And I wasn't trying to pull it out of them. But when somebody's talking to me about struggles or feeling not good enough, or like they can't do something, I just can't help myself but to be their cheerleader and let them know and help them to understand that they can say, be, or do anything. Anybody can, really, if you believe. And so I'll listen to people and give them ideas and whatever. But I think it's that I pick up on people who are struggling a little bit. And it may not be that they end up working with me. Sometimes a year later, they'll come back or whatever, or they'll tell somebody and they'll say, "Oh, I heard you help so-and-so, and I want to know more. I want to work with you. Do you do this?" And so that kind of happens by accident, which I think is the best way to have it.
Well, I'm here for happy accidents in that way. Really like this year, because you're in terms of marketing, I show up, I do the work, I come in, I look for opportunities to support people, but I also, like Holly and Megan, we also go to places where people normally wouldn't go. Bonnie, that same thing seems to happen to you. You're like, I'm not trying to do anything, but apparently you're bringing in things that you wouldn't normally bring in. I want to keep going here, and what I'll do now is it's an open roundtable, so we can open our mics, you can ask each other questions. We'll let the conversation go. Y'all are too awesome to keep you muted. Where I'll come here is I like to look at your perspectives on business, right? And the way I'll ask this question is, what's something that you used to believe to be true that you found out, and it might even be true for other people, but you found out for yourself in the way that you run your business that it's not true for you, and what did you take on instead? All right, I want to get into that element of self-trust, and also just the what you learn as you continue. So, Amanda, I see you're unmuted. Why don't you share with us?
Yeah, I think back in the day, I might have believed that there was a business Amanda and a personal Amanda. And I've evolved, and it's very seamless. So there's one Amanda and she, it's all me. I think that idea that there is separate pieces of ourselves that we give to separate areas is kind of an unevolved maybe, or at least it doesn't work for me. So that's something that's changed. And like Myles, I have another gig, which is I'm director of mission delivery for the Live Project, which is an organization designed to turn the tide of youth suicide. And we do that through film and art and game. And the motto is fearless conversation. And essentially everything I do in my life, I want to be about fearless conversation. So business is about fearless conversation. I have a magazine I'm producing, fearless conversation podcast. And that really, like Holly noted, that vulnerability and authenticity invites collaboration. It invites growth in business and in our personal lives. So that's kind of a little snippet of my own evolution.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm feeling in the vulnerability and authenticity part of it, but also the fearless conversation component of it. Like I like to get more into that. Like what does it look like to be fearless or to be courageous as conversation goes on? We'll continue right now with that element of like things that you thought were true or that you used to believe. But I'll be curious to see how it goes on. Bonnie, I see you.
I think something that I thought early on is that you have to fit into a certain mold. I mean, I took a ton of training as a nurse practitioner. Obviously, I had formal education, but I've taken tons of training since then on different things, and it's like nothing ever fits. So I would take a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, and what I think I don't believe that you should have to fit into any particular mold. Because if you're just you, it's that authentic self that we were talking about earlier. If you're just, I mean, I always tell people, what you see is what you get. That's all I know how to do. And I think for me, that works, even though I don't have a specific niche. I don't fit into a mold. I don't do a lot of marketing, those kinds of things. But I think it's just if you do what you love, some people say, well, I need to find my purpose. Well, I believe that your purpose finds you. It just happens. It's not something that you go looking for. And if you are doing what brings you joy, what makes your heart sing, you're in the right place.
Keep going. Thank you very much, everybody. Keep going, Timea. Like I'm okay with just having us just build off each other here. Go for it.
One of the beliefs that I had was you can't have it all. So it's like you have a successful business, but then your personal life struggles, or it's like, oh, you found your dream partner, but then your friendship struggles, like something like that. And I think that's something that a lot of my clients see as well, of like, well, if this is going really well, then something has to give. And I don't think that's true. It's like, as you evolve as a business owner, a healer, a leader, you actually become the best version of yourself for your partner, for your children, for your friends, for your community. So one of the things that I always say is, yes, please, more, please, good on top of good. And like, I believe that, I feel that, and that's something that I literally want to like scream from mountaintops, like you can have that too. So I think that's part of the fear element of like, well, if I start a business, I won't have time for anything. I mean, yes, you can sleep less like Myles. I actually still sleep as much as I would like with just moving things around. But then I think that's something that's really important to remember, that you can have it all, but you have to make peace with that it's possible, and it's possible for you.
I love that juxtaposition there. You can have that too. You can't have it all. Like there's an expansiveness that I feel in here. Holly, I see you. Why don't you come in and add in, please?
Thank you. I think what's really shining through when I think of this question was my own limiting beliefs, right? My own limiting beliefs around I'm not allowed, or this imposter syndrome of I'm not allowed to shine. I'm not allowed to expand. Who am I to have such a message? Who am I? What will people think? And in that, it made me so trepidatious to even try anything, which is why I kept, like I mentioned earlier, kept trying to find the right formula and do the right thing and listen to this coach and listen to that coach and do this formula and do this program, and coming around to this place of, I keep thinking of one of my business coaches who was talking to me about imposter syndrome. And he was like, well, the best way to not to be an imposter is just don't be an imposter. Just be you, And so that's something where I really started to face that we are allowed. We are allowed to shine. We are allowed to expand. We are allowed to put that message out there into the world. And that if it impacts whether 1 or 100, the message is just as potent. And that for me has been, even in the last few years, has really given me this confidence to shine and show up and be like, I am allowed. Because if I allow myself, then other people will give themselves permission. They'll give themselves permission to move into those uncharted waters, or they'll move toward those places within themselves where they might feel like an imposter, or they're afraid to spread their message. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had or people that have come into my space that end up seeing themselves as this expansive, beautiful creature who can, expand their wings and move toward so many different places in their lives that they didn't think. And I don't remember who said it. Maybe it was Amanda. I too felt like I had to leave people behind. I felt like, well, if I move into this, if I become more expansive, if I become super successful, then that means I'm leaving people behind. And if anything, what I felt is that the right people will then continue to show up. And maybe it was Bonnie who said that I have people who now, years later, months later, who come around to me and go, you know, I wasn't necessarily ready for that before, but I'm ready now. And I think that readiness is something that I myself had to navigate and go through. And it's full permission, like full throttle. Let's go. That's something that I pride myself in. And when some of those messages come through of my own limitations, it's almost like developing the capacity to facilitate ourselves toward these moments in our business, in our personal life, to lean in and to lean in with that fearlessness.
You know, I'm very grateful for all of you, because I'm like, oh, y'all really are outliers. Like, like you're saying all these different beliefs. I'm like, yeah, I know that one. I know that one here. I actually want to go around with everyone. Let's go to Myles and let's go to Megan and round this one out here. What's a belief that you had about business and what's transformed for you? I think that's really real.
Yeah. So, when I first got out of college and got my first job, I had built it up that like, oh my gosh, the people that are high up in this company, they know everything, right? They're super smart. They've got it all together. And the longer you're in it, you realize that nobody really knows anything at all, really. And there are just some people that are better at figuring it out. Like everything you learn in college, if you went, like, becomes pretty obsolete soon after you graduate. And so being able to learn and continue to learn is really the key, not so much what you know. And I think people get hung up of like, oh, I don't know how to do accounting. How am I going to do my books if I started my own business? And it's like, well, you figure it out is the answer. You learn, or you hire someone. And like just getting over that, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, focusing on what you don't have, but then just looking around and realizing what resourcefulness and what qualities you do possess, and then how you can implement those. It all builds and you start to learn more as you go. And so I still, I talk to business owners all the time on advisory boards, and it's like, everybody's just figuring it out. Some people have fancier titles than others, we're all the same.
Megan, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but I think you just hit something that just like it jars me right here, where it's like no one really knows anything at all. And I think that like just putting that into perspective, Outliers, if you're sitting on the fence and you're like thinking that someone's going to come and check you on all this stuff, like we are all making this up, and that's why I love doing this. Like I decided one day, I'm like, I'm going to do a podcast like as a panel. I'm like, I haven't seen people do it. I did this a year ago, y'all. Like a year ago, I did this, and I was like, oh no, I don't know if the people are really ready for it. And now I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Because I'm ready for it. And I think that, and like, and I would love to learn how to make this really beneficial for all that's involved. Myles, you said something here that I wanted to make sure I get out, because it wasn't that you said there are people who are, some people are better at just figuring it out. And Outliers, I think that component, especially for us as Outliers, is one of the places that I can confidently say that we all excel at. Because we would not be Outliers if we have not figured out our own paths of success. The number of people with the stories, your unique story, you probably aren't quote unquote supposed to be here if you look at like where you are right now, but you have figured it out. And Myles, when you say that, I'm like, that is something I think we all have, that like it's something we can continue to navigate here. And so I appreciate you bringing that into the space here. Okay. Yeah, that really hit me. That really hit me. I realized that. Megan, curious, like you can build off of anything you've heard so far. You can bring in one of your own beliefs that like you realize that it no longer served you. Well, bring it into us.
So to kind of expand on what Myles was saying, and also Holly, I feel like a belief that I had was that I had to be perfect, or I had to have all my ducks in a row before I could start. I was so timid. I was so scared to start. And Holly just kind of helped me push through that belief of like, girl, like I know you didn't get any sleep last night because you have a newborn and you worked 40 hours this week and like you haven't showered in 3 days. She's like, show up and talk about that. And then the people that are meant to be your clients are going to come to you. Where all of us are in the same boat in some kind of way, right? No one is perfect all day, every day. It's not that you have to have a certain amount of money saved up. It's not that you have to have everything ready to go. It's that you are doing your best, you're staying grounded, you're showing up, you're being completely authentic. And I just believe that you are the energy that you want to attract. So you just show up and be you, and you're going to get what you need out of it. And everyone else is going to get what they need from you.
Yeah, I appreciate all of you here. Like what I want to do is give Outliers a chance to get a sense of the game that you're playing right now. We're going to be this. I think will be like a meteor kind of an answer, and then we're going to wrap up after this one, right? And so everyone's invited to come play. The way I'll frame this here is like, what are you doing right now that scares you in your business? What's something that feels like you're stepping into the unknown? And how are you navigating? How are you using like the skills? How are you figuring it out to borrow that element? But we'll go with that there. I think I can ask this question pretty confidently, knowing that the things that scare us are usually the things that grow us and also excite us at the same time. And so let's bring that into the mix here. Is anyone feeling like they have something to share on this? Yeah, I see you, Myles.
So I just completed something that was pretty scary about 10 days ago. I ran my first 100-mile ultramarathon. How does that apply to business, right? Thanks for this time. Yeah, it's hard. I actually think I broke my pinky toe. It's taped up right now. I'm still recovering. It's wild. Talk about dark work. Like 10 hours of it was in pitch black darkness running at night after being up all day. It took me 23 hours and 58 minutes to do it. But anyway, where's that coming from? Why am I doing this? You know, my book and the talk that I gave was called Unseen Work. And the idea came out of stories like this from my podcast, where I was interviewing people and hearing about their pathways to success. And everybody seemed like they had it figured out and was doing all this cool stuff. But when you talk to them, they didn't know what they were doing and they just figured it out. And their stories along the way that nobody really saw was the most interesting. And so I compiled all these stories, put it in the book, did a whole TED talk around it, built a whole brand around it. And then I was just kind of like, what do I do now? You know, like I had some of those stories were mine, but like I felt the need to I need more stories. I can't just exist off of other people's stories. So I started for the past 4 years, I've been like, how do I put this idea into work, into practice? And so I've just quietly and unseen been tackling a bunch of different challenges in athletics because I was a swimmer up and through college. And so it started with running my first marathon, and now I've done 4 marathons and 3 ultras in the 100. And so it's been like seeing what I can do, and along the way breaking all these barriers I was putting myself personally, just like we talked about with business, and then creating content out of that, taking all sorts of notes, really like working on the second edition of the book and ways that I can expand and apply the idea to other things. But I've just been my own experiment really at this point and pushing myself out of my comfort zone in that way. And then other really cool things have happened as a result of it, which is neat.
That like I haven't run a half marathon yet. I think about the 5K feels like something to me. So Myles, yeah, I can imagine like hitting the dark and just continuing, as well as like the physical darkness there. Like I like how both the environments are in place here. I saw you, Amanda. Let's continue. What are you doing that scares you nowadays?
Yeah, well, it's what am I doing that doesn't scare me right now? Even doing this podcast is a little bit unnerving because
Thanks for being real about that. Yeah.
So that is bringing up my like imposter syndrome feelings. And I'm also doing something I've wanted to do. I was an editor of a magazine, but I wasn't the publisher, and it wasn't really my vision. And I'm creating a magazine that is my vision, and I'm getting ready to go get advertisers, and it's kind of terrifying to me to do that. So yeah, I'm in a realm that is not historical for me. I don't have years of expertise. So I feel off balance and also joyful, but yeah, off balance every day.
I love that. And Amanda, if you can, I feel called here. Tell us a little bit about your magazine, just so in case any outliers listening right now and they want to come and
Thank
support you
you.
in this part of it all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So the like my website, it's called Soulful Living, and it has different departments, and it really is all about celebrating the life we're living. So I have artists, from all over talking about the role of creativity, and even non-artists are talking about that. I just invited a lot of people who have been on my podcast to submit photos, and they, some of them sent me photos where they're at the beach and they're in bathing suits and they're like uncomfortable, and they're talking about how they're celebrating themselves and their body and their physicality. Um, so it's a series of just really sections about every kind of aspect of ourselves. And, you're all invited. I think you're all doing such exciting work that, I would love future collaborations and participation. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
Thanks, Amanda. I love the shift because I'm like we can all continue to build with each other, right? We can continue to grow, and that's one of my ethos. One of the things that drives me forward. So thanks, Amanda. Thanks for bringing that in. Who else? Who has something that they're working on right now that really scares them nowadays? All right, I see you, Holly.
Ooh, I love this question because I do believe we should move towards the places that scare us. Right now, well, and for the last few years, I've been saying, like, in a love affair with the unknown. About 2 years ago, I decided to pack up my belongings and move to Mexico. I packed up all my belongings, moved to Mexico. I left a house in Colorado where I had renters and all the things. And over the last 2 years, this has really been evolving and moving towards those places of how am I going to make money? How am I going to still have my clientele? What am I going to do? And now I'm in the Virgin Islands. And it's been such a process of trusting. And the big thing that now has transpired from moving into different spiritual communities is moving toward a collaboration with a really beautiful human here in the Virgin Islands, where we're creating waking dream retreats. It's still in its evolutionary and like birthing phase, but I've always had a dream of traveling the world. I waited because I have two kids that are now 21 and 23, and leaving them behind in Colorado was such an upheaval for me. I was so scared about like what's going to happen to them. But what if I leave? I left all of my friends, all of my community, and everything I've ever known. I had an office for 15 years and it terrified me. And it still terrifies me. I am so scared some days because I'm living in different places, but it has brought me to so many people. And if that has not taught me how to receive, I don't know what has. It has created these environments where people are like, what are you doing? Where have you been? Oh my gosh, come and stay in my house for the next 3 months. Here's my car. And it's been so amazing to move toward what excites me, but also terrifies me. And Waking Dream Retreats has been a dream of mine to travel the world and create these containers for people to step towards themselves and dream about a life that perhaps we all maybe wish that we could have. And I believe it's a lot of, I call it when, then, if thinking. Like, when I get that job, then I'll be happy. When I do this, then I'll be successful. Whatever that when, then, if thinking is. And it has really taught me to just let go of the when and just be. Just be the happy, just be the expansion, just be the dreamer. And through that, have learned to repattern so many different pieces about myself. And it has taught me a lot about what it really means to be courageous, to step into the unknown, especially driving by myself down to Mexico and people going, what are you doing? That is insane. And then they're like, where are you now? You're in the Virgin Islands. How did you get there? What are you doing? How are you making money? And it's been riveting. And honestly, like I said, terrifying on every level possible.
This is like, I feel that, and it's been riveted, like other people are looking at it and they're scared. It's just the thing, but it's like for you, it's like this is exciting. This is driving me forward here. Thank you, Holly. And I feel like there's just a lot of resonance here. I'm seeing a lot of head shaking, just like conversation going on here. It's absolutely fun, like fantastic. To me, I'm feeling drawn to you. I'm like there's a curiosity I have right now. Let's bring that in, and then we'll start wrapping up the conversation all together.
Okay, what scares me? I feel like I'm constantly changing how I run my business. I mean, one thing that scares me forever is tech. And also, I was having tech issues, so that was hilarious. There you go. That's why I have a little bit of a trauma there. But I'm really fine tuning how I'm showing up, when I'm showing up, also like the offerings that I have, which is like hard when you're really good at something, but you feel called to move to the next level. So I've just recently started doing retreats, currently just in Canada, but I do want to do international ones. So it's just, how do I bring people together in like these safe communities? How do I like share what I have to share slash what I've done wrong, and how can I teach you so you can save some time and energy, and like being able to really step out of that, but then getting a little bit into the imposter syndrome, getting a little bit in like, but I've never run a retreat before. I don't know how to do this. What are the details? So that's like, how can you do it and let the fear actually, like, I mean, fear, is it fear or is it excitement? Is it stepping out of your comfort zone because you've never been there? But then are you comfortable in your comfort zone? No, you're probably bored and getting stagnant. So then letting the discomfort and the unknown actually be what drives me forward more, because it's like, you know, you're meant to be there. And then I don't want to do that in 5 years if I can do it in like the next 3 months. And like, is it scary? Yes. But then regulate your nervous system, get into energy healing, reprogram your subconscious mind, and then do it anyways. And not in a like striving, pushing energy, but in this like deep trust of, I've survived everything I've ever been handed. And so have you. And that you're here. So then what is the worst thing that could happen? And if that happened, you will figure it out. So then do it anyways. And just big breath, get grounded, let's go, keep moving. And it's like, somebody needs your medicine. Somebody needs your message. Somebody is wishing there was a mentor out there talking about what you're talking about. So then when you do it, you're like, oh, you needed this. Got it. So stop waiting.
Well, thank you for that, Timea. And I just saw something pop up here. Bonnie said, like, fear is good. If you're scared, you're on the verge of something great. And I want to make sure we put that in here. Look, I appreciate each of you here. Outliers, this conversation has been, if there's ever a conversation I've had where where it's like been like, now just make it happen, it's this conversation. I have like the energy in this space is actually really, really electric. What I want to do here is make sure that each of you have a way. We're coming up to the top of the hour, so I want to make sure each of you have a way for Outliers to continue down the journey with you. And so what we'll do is we'll do it this way here. If you can go and share like how people can continue down with you, and then you can just share like a brief insight that you've had from today's conversation, something you're taking away. If you're not taking anything away too, yeah, totally fine. You're like, I'm good. I'm not taking anything away from this conversation. That's fine too. All right. But let's wrap up in that way. We'll go with Bonnie, then we'll go to Myles, and we'll continue from there.
Well, the best way to connect with me is just to go to my website, because everything is there and everything is linked. And it's just my name. It's bonniegroessl.com. And it's kind of interesting. I am the only Bonnie Groessl in the whole online world ever. I've never found another one. So I kept that as my website. So it's bonniegroessl.com. And what I take away from today is I love meeting all of you, even just so briefly, because there are so many similarities between all of us. And, you know, it's just a reminder of how we all are one, really all connected. So thank you for sharing your time with me.
Thank you, Bonnie. I love that. Myles?
So like Bonnie, I've got a website that's just my name. So it's Myles with a Y and then Biggs.com. You can find all my stuff there. From today, it's like I was reminded of things I already knew, but I still needed to hear again. You know, it's like I think within all of us is still that version of us that was afraid to start, even though we're in the middle of it. And it's like, how do we keep it going? And so there's things that I've been on the fence on, and what should I do? And this has been good for me just to be reminded of things I've already done and just regain that confidence in myself, but then also hear stories small of you. So I appreciate you sharing.
Appreciate you, Myles. Let's go with Amanda and then Timea.
Well, same thing about the website. You can find it all there. It's soulfulliving.com, spelled SOL and then Iving, soulfulliving.com. And you can find everything that you can ever want there. And I just wrote down what Myles said. I mean, there's so much permission that I've been given, I think, through this, Niiamah. So thank you. I love, Myles, what you just said, that within all of us is that person that was afraid to start, even though we're in the middle of it. I think that bears repeating. That's a great line, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you bringing everybody together.
Thanks for being here, Amanda. Thank you for showing up. Maya, and then we'll go to Megan.
So many takeaways. Like that's hard to like narrow it down. I would say the biggest thing that hit me was just like we need to come together more and share these more. And I think people want to be perfect online and seem like they have it together, but then it's like, look, I'm struggling, or oh, I'm still learning, or oh, I'm not 100% sure, but I'll still do it and I'll still figure it out, and that's okay. So whoever's listening, I feel like someone needs that message of just go, just do it, and you're not going to know until you're in it, and then you'll figure it out, but you will. But you got to get started. So I think that was like my biggest thing. Also, I need to make more peace with tech in one day. And if anybody wants to connect, my website is theurbanhealer.ca because I'm in Canada. And in case you want to check out my podcast, it's Discover Your Joy. And thank you again for calling me.
Thank you so much. Megan and then Holly.
I think what I've taken away today is just that risk taking pays off, and that if you have a dream, that you just need to do it. Just stop waiting, take your chances. I'm in Denver, so my website is happyhealingdenver.com, and Holly and my podcast is Yoga in the Dark, which we are starting up again next week. We took a little hiatus, but we're back.
Awesome. I'm glad the timing worked out there. Thank you so much, Megan. And Holly?
Oh, so many wonderful takeaways. I think it really, to me, emulates the power of community, the power of knowing that we are not alone. So many of us that are entrepreneurs, oftentimes we feel alone and we wonder if what the heck we're doing is even taking us anywhere, or if anybody's even listening, or if anybody even cares. And that for me has been a huge takeaway. I've seen it in the Virgin Islands. I'm seeing it in Mexico. I've seen it in Colorado, and I'm seeing it here, that when we come together, it creates, like you said, Niiamah, is that there's this expansive energy that we create together. And that when we band together, it creates these ripple effects out into the ethers, and it gets people fired up and believing in themselves. And like Megan said, yoga in the dark. We took a little bit of time off. We've had some babies. We've done some traveling, and we're really excited to start that up again. And then if you want to find me, hollynicolehealing.com. And yeah, just thank you so much for pulling this together and for the work that you do. I do believe that when we feel like outliers, we think we're not normal. And I think we're actually the most normal ones. And we're giving people full permission to step out of that bell curve and be along the outskirts of what society has fed us we're supposed to do, or what we think, what milestones we think we're supposed to be on. And then when we get to this place of realizing that actually in these types of communities that we really have something to offer. It's truly, Timea was saying, it's the medicine. We're offering that.
Well, I thank you all for offering your time, your experience, and your openness and authenticity here today. Thank you so very much here. I appreciate all of you, and I believe that Outliers are going to gain so much for it. Until the next time we talk, remember to be you on purpose and journey on. We'll talk again soon.